Hello, welcome to Phantom Homicide. Today we are taking a deep dive into a mystery that, well, it didn't just haunt one family, did it? It fundamentally rewrote the social contract for an entire nation.
That's right. We're talking about the vanishing act of Jane, Arna, and Grant Beaumont from Glen Elg Beach in South Australia way back in 1966.
A case that still chills people to the bone.
Absolutely. This is much more than just another cold case. It's really a psychological marker in modern Australian history. We're looking at three very young children, 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Arna, and little Grant, only 4. Their disappearance on Australia Day, January 26, 1966. It's pretty much universally recognized as the day Australia, quote, lost its innocence.
Yeah.
An unprecedented, devastating event. There's no other way to put it.
That phrase, the loss of innocence, it gets thrown around a lot, but here it feels completely earned, doesn't it?
It does. Before 1966, the general assumption was safety. I mean, kids walked to the beach alone. They played unsupervised for hours.
And the community sort of acted as this collective watchdog.
Exactly. The Beaumont case just shattered that. It proved the world was, well, perhaps far more dangerous than anyone had really imagined. That bedrock of parental trust, it just crumbled. Overnight, really.
So our mission today, our deep dive, is about precision. We're going to try and meticulously reconstruct those final known hours, those sunny hours at the beach.
And we'll need to analyze every little sliver of evidence that remains. The strange purchase at the bakery, that mysterious £1 note, the increasingly detailed sightings of this unknown man.
And then, of course, we have to critically look at the decades of investigation that followed, the desperate hoaxes, the parade of really chilling suspects. It's led this case into this heartbreaking limbo it's still in today. Okay, let's start by setting the scene. Let's unpack this family, because to really grasp the depth of the tragedy, you have to understand how ordinary, how normal their lives were beforehand.
Jim and Nancy Beaumont, they were, a pretty classic post-war couple.
Right.
Jim was an Australian Army veteran. He met Nancy Alice back in 1955 at the Victoria Hotel in Adelaide. She'd just arrived from Mildura.
And wasn't there a story about him winning big at the races right before they met?
Yeah, legend has it. It kind of sets the tone, doesn't it? A modest, comfortable, generally happy life. Jim had been a taxi driver, but then he became a traveling salesman for a linen company.
Right, which meant he was away quite a bit.
Exactly. His job, while it provided stability, demanded he be away from their home in Somerton Park for days at a time, often up in rural places like Snowtown. And that absence, well, it kind of provided the quiet backdrop against which the children's routine, their independence, was established.
And the children themselves, they sound so vibrant, each with such distinct personalities. Jane, the eldest at 9, she was the anchor, wasn't she?
Very much so. Described as highly protective, really intelligent, and carried herself with this maturity. People said like a 15-year-old.
Wow.
She was shy, apparently loved reading, and her big dream was to be an author or maybe a teacher.
It's those little human details that really get you. Nancy mentioned Jane had this polished composure, but it would crack when she got excited.
Yes, she'd start to stutter slightly. That little vulnerability, coupled with her sense of duty as the oldest, it made her this blend of, responsible leader, but also a gentle spirit.
Then you had Arna, who was 7. She was the opposite, the extrovert, the family's little spark plug.
Oh, pure energy, a magnificent wild imagination. Apparently she was always putting on singing and dancing concerts. Just loved the spotlight. They sound like perfect foils for each other, Jane and Arna.
Definitely. And Grant, the baby of the family, just 4 years old.
The little gentleman. That's how he was described. Doted on by everyone. He apparently vitalized his father, Jim, and would follow him around during chores.
And he had that little red go-kart.
Yeah, pretending it was a taxi.
Yeah.
Mimicking Jim's old job. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the closeness, the respect he had for his dad.
What's so crucial to understand here, I think, is how normal that independence was for them. Sending them to the beach alone. It wasn't seen as reckless back then.
Not at all. Independent outings were just part of their, modest, comfortable lifestyle. With Jim traveling so much, Jane naturally stepped up.
She was responsible for the bus ride, which was super short, carrying Grant if he got tired, making sure they didn't swim too deep.
No deeper than their belly buttons. That was the rule. They were trusted. They were sensible kids. This wasn't out of the blue.
And the day itself, January 26th, 1966, Australia Day, a national holiday, and it was hot, scorching hot.
The perfect beach day, tragically. Jim had actually taken them to Glen Elg the day before, so they'd had a taste of the fun. But now he was away, up in Snowtown for work.
Nancy was hesitant at first, wasn't she, about letting them go again?
She was. But they begged, wanting to make the most of the last bit of school holidays. She eventually relented, thinking it was just a harmless, quick trip.
She let them take the bus. The stop was, what, only 100 meters from the house? Super close?
Tiny distance. They were expected back by midday. And they barely carried anything. Just the bus fare for that short trip and a little bit of money for lunch.
8 shillings and sixpence in silver coins.
Exactly. And that detail becomes so critical later. Because, in 1966, 8 shillings and sixpence. It was enough for a basic lunch for 3 small kids, sure, but it wasn't a lot of cash.
It just points to a simple routine, not some big, lavish day out. Okay, let's walk through this critical timeline, because this is where everything unravels right in plain sight over just a couple of hours. What strikes me is how public it all was.
It really was. They arrived exactly as planned. Around 10:15 a.m., they got off the bus on Mosley Street.
And someone saw them straight away.
Yes, Tom Patterson, the local postman. He knew the family well. He saw them holding hands and laughing, walking along Mosley Street towards the beach. Little Grant even waved hello to him, so everything seemed perfectly normal. They were happy, on track.
They spent the next hour or so playing near the Glenelg Jetty, in the shallow water, the busiest part of the beach. Just standard kids stuff.
Then, around 11 a.m., they moved off the sand onto Collie Reserve, that grassy area right next to the beach. Apparently, they were using a water sprinkler there, rinsing off the sand before planning a head home.
And this is the moment the unknown man appears.
This is it. An elderly woman witnessed him approach the children there on the reserve. And her description, it's burned into the case files forever. Tall, athletic build, maybe 6 feet tall, looked to be in his 30s, deeply tanned, wavy blonde hair.
And wearing distinctive bathers.
Navy blue briefs, yeah, with a noticeable white stripe. Very specific detail.
The way he approached them is just chilling. He didn't interact straight away.
No. Initially, he just lay on his stomach nearby, watching them. It sounds almost predatory, doesn't it? That passive observation.
Extremely. But then the shift in their behavior was incredibly fast.
Almost instantaneous. Within maybe 15 minutes, the witness said the children were comfortable enough with him that they were playing games with him, jumping over him as he lay there, playfully flicking him with their towels.
That rapid trust. That's the first huge red flag, isn't it? Especially for Jane.
Absolutely. Nancy always described Jane as incredibly shy, very modest. She shouldn't have warmed up to a total stranger that quickly. It strongly suggests one of two things.
Either he was an unbelievably skilled groomer, able to win trust instantly.
Or, and this seems more likely, he wasn't a total stranger. Maybe he'd been watching them on previous trips, perhaps even exchanged a few words before. He built some level of familiarity, enough to seem safe.
And then comes the money. The financial hook. This is probably the single most important piece of hard evidence we have.
Without a doubt. Between about 11:30 a.m. and midday, the kids leave Collie Reserve. They walk over to Wenzel's Cake Shop, which was right there, next to their bus stop home.
And the order they placed was
They're
weird.
completely anomalous.
Yeah.
5 pasties, 6 finger buns, 2 large bottles of soft drink. I mean, that's a feast for 3 little kids.
Way more than they'd usually get. But the key item.
And a pie for the man. The shopkeeper specifically remembered that because she said the Beaumont children had never, ever bought a meat pie before.
Wow.
That single item told police the man was either right there with them or he'd sent them in with specific instructions for his lunch, too.
But the really staggering part was how they paid. They should have had, 8 shillings and sixpence in coins.
Correct. Instead, they paid with a crisp, new 1-pound note.
Which in 1966 was
Wait.
quite a lot of money, right?
A significant sum. Maybe half a day's wages for a laborer back then. Certainly extravagant for a kid's lunch at the beach. This instantly confirmed what police were starting to suspect. A third party was involved, and that third party had just supplied a generous, calculated bribe.
A bribe to secure their compliance.
Precisely. It shows the abductor was operating on a different level. He wasn't just offering a lolly. He was making this grand gesture of wealth, of care, cementing that trust he'd already built. By midday, you could say they'd been completely seduced by this unexpected generosity.
And crucially, they didn't go home. They missed the midday bus they were supposed to catch.
Correct. Minutes after leaving the bakery, they were spotted again back at Collie Reserve near the Surf Life Saving Club. And they were, again, talking with the blonde-haired man.
This next sighting is bizarre. It shows him actively managing this situation, doesn't it?
It does. The man apparently approached an elderly couple sitting nearby and said something like, "Someone's nicked our money," or "nicked my wallet," something to that effect.
Why would he do that?
Police strongly believe he was feigning concern. either to justify the large one-pound note he'd just given them for the bakery, making it seem like he had plenty of money but someone had tried to steal theirs, or, maybe more plausibly, to create an excuse for why the children's own bus fare and Jane's little purse were now missing from their belongings. He was controlling the narrative.
That's terrifyingly calculated, but maybe the most intimate and the most damning sighting was when witnesses saw the man helping Jane get dressed.
Yes. Nancy Beaumont later emphasized to police that Jane, being so shy and modest, would never have allowed a complete stranger that kind of physical intimacy, helping her with her clothes.
It suggests he wasn't a stranger anymore, not in her mind. He'd somehow established this temporary, almost parental authority over her.
That's likely the point the abduction was effectively complete. They were separated from the world, hidden in plain sight by this veil of misplaced trust.
The final sighting is ambiguous. From the postman again.
Tom Patterson, yes. He initially thought he saw the children later in the afternoon around 3 p.m., walking away from the beach, towards home, laughing and holding hands.
Which would have been confusing.
Very. But he later retracted that timing. He became convinced he was misremembering his earlier sighting from the morning. That retraction was a huge blow to the investigation, really. It left the police without a firm time for the final disappearance.
So the bottom line is, they missed the midday bus. They missed the 2 p.m. bus. They missed the 3 p.m. bus. The window of opportunity for the abductor was just wide open. You can only imagine the dread setting in for Nancy Beaumont. It must have been immediate, crushing. She started worrying when they missed that midday deadline.
And Jim arrived home early, didn't he? From Snowtown.
Yeah, around 3 p.m. He'd cut his sales trip short because business was slow. Initially, he tried to reassure Nancy, maybe they just lost track of time.
But by 3:30 p.m., the silence from Glen Eld must have been deafening.
They drove straight down there to the packed foreshore. Jim searched frantically, running up and down the beach, calling their names. But by 5:30 p.m., they knew they had to make the formal report.
They went to the Glen Eld police station. And the initial police reaction, well, sadly, it really reflects that pre-1966 mindset.
They didn't take it seriously at first.
The constable on duty apparently dismissed the severity, assured them the kids had probably just wandered off, lost track of time, maybe caught a later bus. An abduction of 3 children, all at once. It just wasn't. It wasn't in the realm of immediate possibility for them.
But Jim Beaumont felt differently. He had this fierce, immediate gut feeling. They hadn't drowned.
He knew that beach. He knew his kids. He stressed to police. The sea was dead calm that day. The area was packed with thousands of people. He said very clearly something like, while one child might accidentally drown, the 3 together, I just can't imagine that.
And the lack of evidence backed him up completely.
Absolutely. The crucial piece of negative evidence was that nothing was left behind. If they drowned or even struggled near the water, their belongings, the towels, the clothes they were meant to change into, that green beach bag, Jane's little purse, they would have been found abandoned on the sand.
But there was nothing.
Not a trace. Which meant they almost certainly left the beach willingly, taking all their possessions with them. It just solidified the abduction theory.
The devastation back at the Beaumont home, it must have been unbearable. Nancy was reportedly immobilized by guilt, blaming herself for letting them go alone.
Her anxiety about abduction specifically was so intense that a doctor had to be called. They administered a powerful sedative just to help her cope with the paralyzing fear.
But Jim couldn't rest.
No, he drove through the entire night, conducting his own solitary, futile search, checking streets, checking the beaches again and again until 7 a.m. the next morning, just hoping.
This tragedy then triggered what became the largest missing persons search in South Australian history.
The police quickly mobilized resources on a scale that was just unprecedented for the time. 5 sea rescue squadron boats scouring the ocean, teams searching every single stormwater drain, checking sand dunes, dense scrubland.
Massive door-to-door inquiries too, right? Broadcasting descriptions from police cars?
Yes, using loudspeakers, trying everything. The investigation very quickly centered on that unknown man as the prime suspect. The theory hardened. He was likely a pedophile who had successfully groomed the children, maybe over several unsupervised trips.
Which led to the awful question, what was the lure? How did he get them to leave the public beach with him?
Jim Beaumont himself offered one of the most agonizing possibilities. Knowing how attached the children were to him, Jim speculated. Maybe claimed Jim had arrived back from Snowtown unexpectedly and was waiting somewhere nearby to surprise them. Or perhaps, even darker, the man claimed their parents had been in an accident and he was there to take them to safety.
And that £1 note would have bought him credibility.
It would have served as his passport, yes. Proof he was legitimate, someone they could trust in that moment of fabricated crisis.
The public reaction was instantaneous terror, wasn't it?
Pure, unadulterated terror. This case struck a nerve like nothing before, because it shattered that fundamental parental assumption of safety. Could have been anyone's children.
I remember reading the Sunday Mail ran a headline just days later, "Sex crime now feared."
Yes, and they immediately drew parallels to the Wanda Beach murders in Sydney, which had happened the previous year. 2 teenage girls vanished from a crowded beach during school holidays there. The Beaumont disappearance, 3 even younger children taken simultaneously, became this catastrophic national trauma.
It forced a permanent shift in how Australian parents viewed child supervision. The days of casual independence, letting kids roam free, they were basically over after January 1966. The ongoing tragedy of the Beaumont case is just compounded, isn't it, by the fact that the parents' pain became this magnet for cruelty and deception.
Oh, absolutely. For decades, Jim and Nancy were subjected to the most heartbreaking false hopes and some truly vicious hoaxes.
The most infamous and probably the cruelest were the Dandenong letters. This was 2 years after the kids vanished.
Yes. Jim and Nancy received a letter, supposedly written by Jane herself. It claimed they were being well-fed, looked after, and devastatingly, it said that little Grant, who was only 4 when he disappeared, no longer remembered his real parents.
Just imagine receiving that. The letter also claimed the man had watched them for weeks before approaching them.
About 6 weeks, it said, establishing that sense of familiarity we talked about earlier. Then the captor, supposedly moved by a recent newspaper article, offered this terrifying olive branch.
He'd release the children if Jim met him alone.
Alone in Dandenong, Victoria, which is a massive 760 kilometers away from Adelaide, and the crucial condition, Jim had to promise not to involve the police at all.
They must have been in absolute turmoil. Did they notice anything suspicious about the letter itself?
They did. They noted Jane had misspelled her sister's name, Anna, with just 1 N. But they were desperate. You clutch at any straw, don't you?
Of course. So they contacted the police.
Yes. They went to Detective Sergeant Stan Swain from the South Australian Homicide Squad. Given the potential breakthrough, however slim, Swain agreed they had to follow it up. He organized a clandestine secret trip for Jim.
And this is where it all went wrong. Horribly wrong.
Bureaucratic carelessness, really.
Yeah.
Swain booked a hotel room in Dandenong using his full name and his official title.
Oh, no.
The hotel manager, already on edge due to some recent local crime, did a background check, saw Homicide Squad, panicked, and immediately leaked the entire story to the Melbourne Herald.
So the secret rescue mission became a media circus.
Complete circus. The press descended on Dandenong. Jim still went, as instructed, waited out the front of the Dandenong post office for 3 agonizing days.
Yeah.
The man, obviously seeing the media storm, never showed up.
But he kept calling.
He maintained the deception. Called the post office multiple times, telling the staff to relay messages to Jim that he was running late, just keeping him hanging on in that state of torturous hope.
The cruelty is unbelievable, and then more letters arrived back in Adelaide.
2 more. One, again supposedly from Jane, saying the captor was disappointed they brought detectives. The other from the captor himself, blaming the Beaumonts for breaking the rules and promising only that he'd put the children on a train one day. Pure psychological warfare.
Was there a final letter?
Yes, a final poignant letter arrived from Jane the following week, just expressing their eternal love for their parents. It was the last they heard.
And years later, they found out who sent them.
Yes, eventually. A Victorian man confessed. He admitted the whole thing was a catastrophic teenage prank that just spiraled completely out of control. He expressed deep remorse, apparently, but it confirmed the entire Dandenong episode was just a malicious hoax. Another layer of trauma for Jim and Nancy.
The desperation of the investigation, it led them down some strange paths, didn't it? Consulting psychics.
They're willing to try anything. Records show they brought over the famous Dutch clairvoyant, Gerard Cressy, flew him all the way to Australia specifically for the case.
Did he find anything?
No. His visions led police to excavate under the floor of a specific warehouse in Adelaide, predicting the bodies would be there. They found absolutely nothing. It highlights the sheer desperation. When all the conventional leads, all the technology at the time dried up, the active investigation was eventually scaled back. For a long time, it was just a single detective assigned to it.
A truly cold case. But if you strip away all the noise, all the hoaxes, you come back to that £1 note, don't you?
You do. It remains the most critical, enduring piece of physical evidence. It wasn't just proof of a purchase. It represented a calculated investment by the perpetrator. A lavish offer in 1966 terms, that final seductive act of manipulation to bridge the trust gap, solidify their compliance right before he took them away.
The sheer ambiguity surrounding the Beaumont case has meant it's become this historical anchor point, hasn't it, for other unsolved child crimes in South Australia?
Inevitably, when a case is this high profile, this unsolved, theories linking it to every known predator just blossom. It forces police to investigate connections, even ones that might seem tenuous at first.
The most immediate connection they looked at was the Adelaide Oval abductions in 1973.
Yes, that horrific event where 11-year-old Joanne Ratcliffe and 4-year-old Kirst Gordon vanished from a crowded football match. The method seemed chillingly similar.
The abductor was seen actually scooping up the younger girl, Kirst, while Joanne, the older one, fought back.
Exactly. And the descriptions given of that man seemed to match descriptions of the man seen with the Beaumonts 7 years earlier. It started to build a profile of potentially the same highly mobile, predatory offender operating over years.
Okay, let's run through some of the major suspects who've been linked over the decades, starting with Bevan Spencer von Einem.
Von Einem. Convicted in 1984 for one of the notorious family murders here in Adelaide, the murder of 15-year-old Richard Kelvin. His name surfaced in the Beaumont investigation via an informant.
An informant known only as Mr. B.
That's the one. Police often found his information reliable in other cases, and Mr. B claimed von Einem had actually confessed to him.
Confessed to the Beaumonts. What did he supposedly say?
It was horrifyingly specific. Mr. B alleged von Einem admitted abducting 3 children from a beach, taking them home for what he chillingly called experiments, performing brilliant surgery and connecting them up. Then, after one child died during this supposed experiment, he killed the other 2 and dumped all 3 bodies somewhere south of Adelaide.
Good grief. Did he link himself to the Adelaide Oval case too?
Mr. B claimed von Einem implicated himself in the 1973 Oval abductions as well, which, if true, would tie him neatly to that same perpetrator profile police were considering.
It sounds incredibly damning. But why did police struggle to make a firm link? Was it the timeline?
The major contradiction was his age. Von Einem was only 20 years old in 1966. All the primary witnesses at Glenelg were adamant the man they saw was older, in his late 30s, maybe early 40s.
A big difference.
Huge. Plus, von Einem's established pattern of violence, his known victims, were overwhelmingly teenage boys or young adult males. Abducting 3 very young children, including 2 girls, just didn't fit his known psychological profile, his MO.
It raises that question, though, why investigate suspects so far outside the age range?
I think because sometimes physical descriptions, the wavy blonde hair, the athletic build might match somewhat, and the geographic proximity is relevant. They have to rule people out. But ultimately, von Einem's profile remains a poor fit for the kind of grooming and instant trust we saw with the Beaumont kids.
Okay, moving on to suspect number 2, Arthur Stanley Brown.
Brown. He was charged, though never convicted due to dementia, with the 1970 murders of the McKay sisters up in Queensland. His connection to the Beaumonts is more indirect.
It's based on resemblance to sketches from the Adelaide Oval case, right?
Yeah, exactly. Police developed identikit sketches after the 1973 Oval abductions, and Brown bore a striking resemblance to those sketches. So the theory was, if Brown committed the Oval crime, maybe he also committed the Beaumont crime 7 years earlier.
Was there anything in his methods that seemed suggestive?
There was. When the McKay sisters' bodies were found, their school uniforms, their clothes and socks were discovered neatly folded beside them. Brown, who worked as a maintenance carpenter, was known to be pathologically neat, almost obsessive. People said he even folded his household rubbish into perfect squares. That kind of meticulousness, that surgical precision, it aligned with the idea of a very controlled, organized offender.
But again, the age problem.
Massive age discrepancy. Brown was 53 in 1966. Way too old compared to the primary witness description of a man in his 30s.
Yeah.
While one witness did later place Brown in Adelaide around 1973, potentially linking him to the Oval case, there were absolutely no confirmed travel records putting him anywhere near Glenelg in January 1966. Some speculated records were lost or deleted, but nothing was ever proven.
Then there's Derek Ernest Percy.
Ah, Percy. Possibly Victoria's most notorious child killer, certainly his longest-serving prisoner. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity for the 1969 murder of Yvonne Tuoi, but police suspected him in numerous other unsolved child disappearances across Australia.
And his personal diaries were key.
Horrifyingly so. They contain detailed, disturbing fantasies of torture and abduction that seem to mirror aspects of real unsolved crimes. When police specifically questioned him about the Beaumont children,
What did he say?
he apparently claimed he thought he was in Adelaide at the time, near Glenelg Beach, around January 1966. But then he insisted he couldn't remember anything else about it. Psychiatrists suggested this memory lapse might have been a symptom of his psychological condition, perhaps a repression of violent acts.
But the age. Again.
Again, way off.
Yeah.
Percy was only 17 in 1966. Another huge gap.
Mm-hmm.
But his known MO, abducting children from crowded public places, combined with the violence in his journals and his high mobility, kept him as a high-priority person of interest for many, many years.
We should also mention James Ryan O'Neill, who also went by Lee Anthony Brigart.
O'Neill, convicted for the 1975 murder of 9-year-old Ricky Smith in Tasmania. O'Neill is apparently a known boaster. He told several acquaintances over the years that he was responsible for the Beaumont disappearance.
Did he say where they were?
He speculated their bodies were dumped down an abandoned mine shaft way up in Coober Pedy, which is over 800 kilometers north of Adelaide.
Was there any reason to believe him? Any connection to Adelaide?
Well, O'Neill worked in the opal mining industry. His necessary travel routes, driving between Melbourne and Coober Pedy, would often have taken him right through Adelaide, so the geographic opportunity was there.
But police ruled him out.
Despite some people remaining convinced, yes. South Australian police interviewed O'Neill extensively and officially ruled him out as the perpetrator.
Okay, lastly in this section, let's loop back to someone connected to our eventual prime suspect, Fallon Anthony Monroe.
Right. Monroe was a business associate of Harry Phipps, who we'll get to. Monroe himself was a former scoutmaster, and he pleaded guilty to 10 separate child sex offenses dating back to 1962, many of which occurred near Glenelg Beach.
So a known local predator, active at the right time and place, and there was an accusation linking him directly to the day.
A very direct accusation. Another colleague of theirs, a man named Alan Maxwell McIntyre, alleged that Monroe turned up at McIntyre's rural property on the afternoon of Australia Day, 1966, with 3 bodies in the boot of his car.
3 bodies on that specific day.
Yes. That accusation directly ties 2 local offenders, Phipps and Monroe, one a known pedophile active near the beach, directly to the date, the location, and the horrifying possibility of the children's fate. It sets the stage for the modern focus of the investigation.
Which brings us squarely to the man who, for the last decade or so, has been considered the prime suspect, Harry Phipps, often dubbed the Satin Man in media reports.
Phipps stands out from that long list of mostly interstate killers for 2 key reasons: his geography and how perfectly he matches the original description.
Tell us about him. He was a local figure.
Very much so. Harry Phipps was a prominent local businessman, owned a factory. In 1966, he was in his early 40s, a perfect match for the age witnesses gave for the man on the beach. He was described as tall, athletic, had that wavy blonde hair.
And the geography, how close did he live?
This is crucial. He lived less than a minute's walk from Collie Reserve. His house backed right onto the area where the children were last seen playing games with the unknown man. His physical appearance, his age, and his extreme proximity are probably the strongest initial pieces of circumstantial evidence against any single suspect in this entire case.
And wasn't there also a connection to the money, the £1 note?
Anecdotally, yes. Phipps was known to be a wealthy man, and some people reported he often carried and casually handed out £1 notes, the exact denomination, the exact amount Jane used at the bakery. It fits the pattern.
But the most damning evidence potentially came from inside his own family.
Years later, yes. His estranged son, Hayden Phipps, came forward with a truly terrifying testimony. Hayden alleged that his father, who he described as a predatory pedophile and an abusive alcoholic, brought 3 children into their Glenelg home on the afternoon of January 26, 1966.
3 children on that specific afternoon.
Yes. Hayden remembered them having cropped hair, and one was carrying a shoulder bag. He said his father told him they were lost children he'd found.
And Hayden's testimony, it gets darker.
It's indelible. Hayden claimed those 3 children never emerged from the house. Later that same day, he witnessed his father loading 4 large, heavy bags into the boot of his car and driving away. Phipps's known history, combined with his proximity and the precise timing. It makes Hayden's account incredibly difficult to dismiss.
Then there's the purse. The mystery of Jane's purse.
Ah, yes. A researcher named Stuart Mullins was looking into the case. After Harry Phipps died in 2004, Mullins visited the old Phipps residence in Phipps's cellar workshop down in the basement.
He found something?
He found a white clip-top vintage purse sitting on a shelf. Mullen said it was identical in description to the small purse Jane Beaumont was known to be carrying on the day she disappeared.
Identical. What happened when he asked Phipps's widow about it?
Her reaction was reportedly highly suspicious. She immediately became defensive, claimed she'd just bought it herself from an op shop like the previous week.
Which sounds unlikely. Found in a cellar workshop.
Very unlikely. When Mullins informed the police, and they arranged to retrieve the purse just days later, the widow claimed she'd already thrown it away. Now, whether that's true or just an excuse, the act of discarding a potential key piece of evidence from the home of the prime suspect in Australia's most famous cold case, it looks incredibly damaging to her credibility.
All this collective evidence, the description, the location, the son's testimony, the purse incident, it pushed the investigation towards one specific location, didn't it? The Castelloy factory site.
That's right, the factory in North Plimpton, which Phipps owned. The lead came from a specific claim that back in 1966, around the time the children vanished, Phipps had paid two young boys to dig a suspiciously large hole on the factory grounds.
Which brings us to the big modern forensic search in 2018. A huge media event, fueled by all this new focus on Phipps.
A massive operation full of hope for closure, but the site itself posed a huge technical challenge for investigators.
Why was that?
Because the factory grounds have been heavily modified over the decades. More than a meter of concrete and what they call anthropogenic fill, basically. Layers of rubbish, rubble, and man-made debris have been dumped and compacted over the original 1966 ground level.
Making it hard to see what was underneath.
Extremely hard. Traditional forensic geophysics, like ground-penetrating radar, GPR, really struggled. That thick layer of mixed fill created too much noise, too much interference for the radar signals to get a clear picture of what lay beneath.
So they had to use something else, a more specialized technique.
They did. They turned to electrical resistivity tomography, or ERT.
Okay, explain ERT. How does that work differently?
Well, ERT basically maps differences in how well the ground conducts electricity. You put electrodes in the ground, pass a current between them, and measure the resistance. Undisturbed soil has a certain conductivity, but a grave, a hole dug into that soil and then refilled with disturbed earth or organic material or different fillet, will show up as an anomaly because its electrical resistance is different from the surrounding undisturbed ground.
So ERT could potentially see through that messy top layer.
That was the hope. And incredibly, the ERT scan did successfully identify something. It pinpointed a deep, anomalous feature below the fill layer. It looked like two connected rectangular shapes, measuring about 2 meters by 1 meter and 2 meters by 2 meters.
Dimensions that would be consistent with a grave.
Perfectly appropriate dimensions for a clandestine burial site, potentially for 3 small children. And crucially, this anomaly was located precisely in the spot where those witnesses claimed Phipps had paid boys to dig that hole back in '66.
The hope must have been astronomical at that point. For the family, for the police, for the whole country, really.
It's immense. The media coverage was intense. Everyone felt this could finally be it. The answer.
But the excavation itself, when they finally dug down to that anomaly.
It was devastatingly fruitless. Superintendent Bray had to deliver the news. The feature they found wasn't a grave. It was just organic, rich sediment containing animal bones, rubbish, broken ceramic, and shells.
Just an old rubbish pit.
Essentially, yes. A historical tip site. A large pit that had been used for dumping refuse long ago. Completely unrelated. Bray had to confirm there's nothing at all that's been located today that's in any way connected to the Beaumont children. Hope extinguished yet again.
So the search for Jane, Arna, and Grant Beaumont, it remains one of the largest and certainly one of the longest-running criminal investigations in Australian history.
Still officially open. Still active, in theory. There's still that $1 million reward offered for any information that leads to a conviction or the recovery of the children.
The human cost over these, nearly 60 years? It's just immense, isn't it, thinking about Jim and Nancy Beaumont?
The constant emotional turmoil they endured is unimaginable. It eventually led to their divorce in the 1980s, though by all accounts they maintained a deep, valued friendship right until the end.
Nancy passed away in 2019, didn't she? Without ever knowing the truth.
She did. And Jim, who's now well into his 90s, has said publicly in recent years that he's had to make peace with the strong likelihood that they may never find out what truly happened on that sunny Australia day back in 1966.
Their story, though, it's become this unbreakable national legacy. It's the constant, stark reminder of stranger danger. It really marks that moment an entire country's sense of inherent safety was just fundamentally shattered.
And maybe that's the final agonizing paradox of this whole case. You look at the incredible technological leaps we've made, advanced DNA testing, sophisticated forensic geophysics as a ERT that can literally map disturbances 2 meters underground.
All this
And yet,
science.
despite all of it, the most crucial clues in the Beaumont disappearance remain purely behavioral. They were established within hours, 60 years ago. The children's tragically easy trust in that man, his calculated, manipulative use of a simple 1-pound note, and the unreliable, fading fragments of human memory.
So when technology fails to find the physical truth.
We're left exactly where we started, really, suspended forever, relying on the psychological profile of a ghost.
Okay, so we hope you liked our today's discussion. For more such discussion, subscribe to our channel, Phantom Homicide.